doing a cash flow forecast. So this is just to show that we can pay the money back. It's not an intensive one because it doesn't include next year's plan. Cash flow forecasting, yeah. Just to show that there is a cash flow that can pay the bank, but clearly it's not a business plan or a budget or anything because we haven't made that decision. Following that, we would then need to discuss the advisory board and its relationship with the Lotus Rail management team. That's the first thing we'll be doing with the Lotus Rail management team, with the trust representatives and the trust. So the first thing we'll sort out is what that board is, who it is, what it does, and what its relationship with the trust board and the management team. So we'll get the criteria for how we interact and how the trust interact with that, and also in that context how we interact with the trust. That's the first meeting we would all have.
Okay.
Once we go, I believe the trust board has okayed the membership of the Mark and Mike to be members of that board.
I'm not
3M.
No, not members of the board, but you mean members of the trust?
Of that
Advisory
board.
Oh, sorry.
Advisory
okay.
call it. You should probably call it or advisory team or something. They're not really a board.
But he calls it a board. That's
What about Neil Sayer?
And Neil, yeah. Neil's okayed. I don't know if I was asked by Rat Viewer to ask Neil, and I've done that. Told Rat Viewer that he said he is.
Okay.
So I don't know whether Rat Viewer's taken it to the board. Yeah, he calls it an advisory board. So I'm just going by reading this out. Following that, we will then confirm how we operate, which will mean reporting requirements and formats for financial reporting. Who does what with the accountancy.
What was that? Oh, sorry, go.
I can give you this.
Oh, okay.
And we'll be setting our financial and contractual authority limits for the team, what we can spend and how much we can spend, blah, blah, blah. And the advisory board, if any, and the trust representatives, what role they'd have in spending, if any. What there'll be limits, you know, where we have to ask their permission to go over. We'd also set review, meeting processes and frequency of the advisory board, all that stuff. And in that context, once we've got all that done, we'll then sit down with Mike and Mark and start looking forward. So when we start having a forward plan, we'll include them in that discussion with our ideas. So we might have a pre-idea of where we want to go, but you know they've got ideas as well about how they listen to our ideas and see if they can make them work better or not. You know, for instance, Mark's saying, you know, if we decide to go ahead with buying blankets, we could look at whether we do it 3,000 at the beginning of the year or not, rather than our normal ways. But that discussion would be dependent on money being available, so therefore that discussion would involve the advisory board and the trust board, etc. So that would be, once we've got all that set up, then we'll start the meetings of setting out our plan for the future in detail. Okay. In practice, that's at least 2 months away. It's not going to happen through December, and I doubt if very much of it will happen in January. So in practice, we've still got 2 months of planning, you know, to work through, plus setting ourselves up with our ideas for the future to be worked through with the advisory board, probably in February.
God.
That's my guess. I can't see it happening before then.
February's going to be chaotic then, isn't it?
No, I don't know if that's chaotic, because I think February, well, they all go back to school on February the 4th. Our budget for February's not that high.
Really? Okay.
No, and I'm not sure that we're talking about any more meetings than we would normally have anyway.
Oh, okay.
I don't. It's not as if it's going to take 5 days a week or anything like that. It can't do. And I assume we'll have some meetings first and come up with some ideas. It's just that we will filter all those ideas through the advisory board for refinement or comment, you know. And if they involve capital input in any form or another, then we'll have to involve the trust board if it goes over the limits that are set earlier, whatever those limits will be. And I don't know what those limits are. That's the discussion we will have with the trust board and the management team at the time.
So I have so what hasn't been talked about is, and I'm currently assuming it's So we've talked about sort of the operational controls and measures in place so that we don't find ourselves, Lotus Realm doesn't find itself in a position again where it's got these cash flow problems, financial controls. However, that's speaking about, I guess the assumption is that we have a viable business model that we're working with. I guess I'm not sure what that business model is at the moment, and what the advisory caller sees as our business model, because we do so many different things.
I think where we go,
my
my talking to Michael and Mark, and one of his earlier ones after meeting with us was that he sees us very much as a social enterprise, and he said to us in that meeting what he's there to help make a social enterprise financially viable. He says you've got lots of good ideas and not very good on the finance. His role would be just to help us make that work. But how we do it is not up to them. How we do it is up to us with their help in making it a financial viable model. So they're not going to say you must be a trading company or a music company or anything like that. They're only going to advise us on our ideas. So where we go with our business plan, whether we become a social enterprise or a trading company, is up to us. But how we do it financially, they would have input into, and try and help us make whatever we decide to do work.
I see it hopefully as a bit of a two-way conversation, so that it helps us shape, because we don't know what we don't know. So, hopefully that can help us shape. How do we do? Well, we want to do this. How do we?
Yeah.
Do we go for funding, or is it better to get an investor, or like that kind of thing?
Exactly that. That's exactly how I see it.
Yet, so.
Their input will be we'll come up with some ideas, and they'll have input into whether or not it can work and how it can work, and help us make those decisions, and then help us on a day. Michael's agreed to do 12 months beside us on a day-to-day basis for free, and we'll decide at the first meeting when we start paying him.
On a day-to-day or weekly basis?
Well, he's going to be on zero, so he can look at it any day he likes.
Oh, okay.
The reason we put it on zero is so that he's got access to it every day if he wants.
So just popping back to the business models and the fact that we do so many different things. And one of the reasons we do so many different things is, I still think is the effect of the 2008 financial crisis. And we've just been working our butts off to survive, generate cash flow,
and look for opportunity,
pay off debt, and look for opportunity. So when I think of business models, it's like we've actually got giftware as one part of what we do. What's our business model for that? We've got music as one part of what we do. What's our business model for that? And we've had wholesale. What's our business model for that, if it's still relevant to what we're going to be doing? And is there anything else that we're doing, like event management? Is that going to become part of our business model? The Grahamstown Town Gazette, how's that going to fit in? And so you could say we've got different business models within the umbrella of Lotus Realm, and therefore
mentoring young people.
And therefore, what is the business model for the overarch? For the umbrella. Do you see what I mean? Yeah, because without having, just taking giftware for example, without having a clear business model about how we're going to market, what we need to supply, etc., it's how can it actually be a success? Yeah,
and I think
without a clear plan of what to do with it.
I think what we're going to be doing over the next 2 months is throwing all that in the pot and deciding where we want to go with it, and then with the board deciding what would work and how to make it work. For instance,
with the advisory caller.
Advisory caller.
Yeah, don't call them a board.
I just do what they say.
No, it is a caller. It's whoever wrote that email had it incorrect.
It gets too confusing.
Yeah. Otherwise you got board, which board?
Which one are we
the advisory caller would sit down. For instance, if we decide there's going to be a small factor of importing, what is it? How do we do it best? Can we afford it?
So we set a budget for that. What can we get for our money for that amount?
If we're going to have a retail aspect, what are we going to retail? How best do we do that? we're going to have events aspects, how does that fit in? If we're going to have dana aspects, how does that fit in? Yeah, I agree. That's the discussion we can have over the next 2 months, so that when we get together with them, we've got some idea, and then they can help us refine it into a model that works.
And I think, I mean, at least what this last couple of years has given us is definitely a much clearer snapshot about, you know, the strengths and weaknesses that we've been encountering, I think. Like, we can sell stuff when we need to, even if it's not new, or that's a strength. Sometimes, though, we've got stuff and we sort of don't have a plan for what to do with it, so it sits for too long, so that's a weakness. You know, that kind of thing. But the wholesale, for example, I think has become clear. You know, we still can sustain one aspect of it, but the rest, yeah, there's not that response for us. So I think literally we would bring that back to,
Well,
you know, maybe 2 or 3 items that, you know, that's it.
Can I just read out what Mike said in response to the meeting he had with us, with you guys? And I think this is, you get a little bit of a sense of what Mark's thinking, and I think he says, hopefully I can be some assistance to you in the wider mission that Lotus Realm has. In one sense, Lotus Realm is a business, but after hearing you talk, I see it more as the hub of a social mission and network in Thames, or in a Buddhist sense, a set of positive conditions that a whole community can benefit from. Certainly the purpose that the people involved have developed and the commitment indicates that. As we discussed, there is a need for some financial and business planning discipline, not an end in itself, but to ensure that the Lotus Realm purpose and mission is sustained and has an even wider impact. There is also a need to give the trust confidence that they are not exposed to financial risks that put the vision of Siddhartha at risk. With the right structures, government provinces and planning, I believe Lotus Realm and Siddhartha can be strongly supportive of each other. The great thing is they're already very capable, creative, committed and well-intentioned people involved. I appreciate the opportunity to help where I can have most benefit. That's basically it.
So he sees us much more as a social mission.
He said that a number of times, yeah.
And that's sort of what made him interested in taking it on.
And he said, in the past we've had the strong social side and very weak financial side. You know, he said he'd like to see the strong social side and a strong financial side.
What it's a little bit like is we've been selling product because that was...
the thing to do.
Well, no, it was a way of, we thought, based on working with Windhorse Trading, that it was a way of raising funds for the Siddhartha Local Retreat Centre. However, our inclination as a group, collectively, is one of service. Yeah. And so it's almost like beside our best intentions, we've got passion for working with people.
It's because our focus,
I mean, the
like
shop
you say,
now is not
focus.
really a shop, it's more for me a doorway for people into the dana, you know.
And you know, I think the thing is, the other thing we've learnt through this last couple of years is that you can't force where the energy goes. Like the things that we've talked about where we've gone, you know, Inca, kind of that. Suddenly it's like, boom, all the energy was there. Music, you know, that's what boom, the energy's there. Emporium, it's just kind of like, you know, you can't force it. Now, I suppose, you know, the clear challenge there is to work the areas that nobody's enthusiastic about until they're gone and until something else can come in. But to me, I think that's a clear signal that we should. In the past, we've tried to force the energy into areas that we've intellectually gone, we should be doing this, so let's do this. And it's like, you know, grind, and everyone's over it, and it doesn't flow. So we have to respect that.
I had that experience I told you on Saturday at the ukulele festival. It was so obvious.
Yeah.
So obvious what Lotus Realm is. I mean, there's Lotus Realm next to McAllister's and Music Ways and South Pacific and all of those guys. And they've got these stalls with all these ukes and a person standing behind them and a few people.
Big signage.
There's Lotus Realm in the middle with big orange signs, kids everywhere. Like absolutely packed the whole day while they were selling 4 ukes all day or 2 ukes. I think he sold $200 worth, the other guy. And Music Ways came to see me 3 times during the day, and every time he had to go away again.
Because
we were just packed. like, you know, with kids playing with kazoos and whistles and I realised that in a sense that's our strength.
You missed your calling as Santa, I reckon.
In a sense, if we can play to our trading to that strength,
Yeah.
It is.
it will work, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't know what that is, but I'm just saying it was quite clear what Lotus Realm was, and I got a letter from Lynn the next morning thanking us for being there because we had a different aspect.
Who's Lynn?
She ran the big festival.
Oh, she was the organiser.
Mm.
So I just want to draw a link between what's up in our stupa and kids.
Yeah.
So Dado Rinpoche started the
ITBCI.
the IT. I always get the letters around the right. ITBCI.
Oh, it's ITC, yeah, Indo-Tibetan Cultural Institute.
And he had a deep love for children and wanting to support them and also sort of support the Tibetan culture, particularly in the arts, not to be lost. And it's almost like we could draw on that for inspiration for what we're actually doing.
Well, and that's
that's an
he's
alignment.
a good example too, because they expected him to carry on as abbot of a monastery, and he was like, well, no, actually, I think this is more important, having a school for... And it was poor other children as well, not just Tibetan children. So it was sort of that sense of providing for something, a real need in the community, rather than doing an expected job that he was, you know, groomed and destined for his whole life. I think that's quite a good example too. Like,
so in a way, it's a little bit like what's underneath the spirit of what Bante's put up there at Siddharshana Loka is something around working with kids, young people, and Lotus Realm
community.
And it sounds like what you've just shared is actually what Lotus Realm is about. We just haven't really sort of acknowledged it.
It was fantastic to watch Yannick was sitting there with his slide guitar, and these kids, these girls that came, about 4 of them I think it was, and he gave them all $1,000 guitar, a ukulele to play with, and they did a concert in our stall with Yannick, and they had a crowd watching them for a while, you know, like they were really good. I mean, they were ones that ended up singing separate up on the stage, and these kids were just rapt to have these, and they came back later and, you know, sort of couldn't believe, but it was just interesting to see that in our stall there was a concert going on, you know. Next door they were trying to sell ukuleles, and they're really nice. I mean, Ben is a musician and he had lots of friends. But it was different. He had all the old musician friends in there. You know, Yannick sitting there playing with these little kids with $1,000 ukuleles. You know, he said he just let it go, and just let them. You know,
but I think the key bit that links them too, though, is that finding that little effortless flow where the fun and enjoyment and community and connection. There's still money happening. You know, like that there's no obstruction between those two, so that it has a flow on.
Oh, look, there's money. I mean, you know, big corporations focus entirely on that market. So there's money there. It's just a matter of, I think, what do we want to create?
But I think, you know, it might be, well, for example, it could be useful for us as a team in the new year at some point. You know, we could actually revisit that financial attitudes thing that he did when he came.
Amala Vajra.
Yeah, because actually I think that there's underlying things where some people have very open, I'm not looking at anyone, cavalier attitudes, and others are very tight and focused, and, you know, careful, whatever. But it could be useful as a team dynamic to see. I think that, you know, even comparing what some of us that were there, you know, came up with that questionnaire, it was interesting. I'm not saying that's the only thing we should do.
We've got a few guardians now.
I think it would be
the business school advisory council is our guardians.
What I mean is, I suppose it's just because sometimes I think it's those underlying beliefs that we all carry about money and how we feel about it that can sometimes determine whether you make that decision in your own mind, is this possible or not, before you even talk about it with anyone. So sometimes some of us might be losing, well, there might be opportunities lost to the team because someone's like, oh, that's not even ever going to happen, or, you know, so it could enable us to
Anyway, I think what we've got to do over the next 2 months is refine some of our ideas down to, as you say, I think we can explore every area and refine them down to ones that we think are possible.
Yeah.
And then work from there, like, you know, the wholesale. There is an element of wholesale possible, it's just a question of how do we do it in a way that works for us with everything else, if we're not a wholesaler. Same with retail, same with community stuff, and I think we can do that just with discussions and chats and ideas and talking to other people. And I mean, we had a chat yesterday, about with Ujil and Marty about these blank ukuleles I was talking about, you know, and I think, you know, may or may not be a good idea, but it's the kind of thing that we could explore and see some of these ideas where they fit into all the other aspects, so that it is seamless.
Those are the ones you got orders from the festival.
Yeah. And some of us can pursue some of these ideas to the point of deciding whether or not they're a good idea or not. You know, just because you pursue them doesn't mean they have to happen, but I think this, and it's the same with fundraising. You know, we think fundraising is a good idea, but some of them we've got to pursue it to a certain point to decide whether it's going to work or not, you know.
I guess what
you need that framework before you decide. That's the thing. Like, I mean, I'm hanging back from jumping on to doing some of that stuff, even though I'm very prepared to do fundraising stuff. I want to see where it fits into the framework, because the clearer that you are about, you know, what you're trying to do, the more likely you are to get there.
Yeah, it's more as it aligned with the purpose that we're trying to achieve, and
it all needs to be leading in the same direction, to the same place, even though it's all diverse.
And I think what Mark has shared about us being how did he put it? Community mission. Social mission.
Social mission. I think he called it.
So it's really useful having that.
And network in terms.
It's really useful having someone who has experience in business and gives an outside perspective of what he sees. And I do think 2017 is about playing to our strengths, and it's more about, rather than a path of the head, it's a path of the heart. I think that's where, I mean, time's so precious now. I mean, you've got your gold card, probably got a good 5 years left in you.
Maybe.
I'm looking at his mum.
Maybe.
I mean, my dad's the oldest surviving member of our male lineage for 4 generations. Yeah, he got to 68.
68, yeah.
My dad had a similar thing. 72 was the Sandford men. And your dad had such a great attitude, and he was good right till 85, you know.
I'm hoping I've got mum's genes. But anyway.
You do take after your mum.
Yeah.
In other ways. So,
mind you, she was a marathon runner,
wasn't
she?
I'm very much like my dad as well. Although he's very quiet, and I said he smacked my brother once in our whole, only once that he ever disciplined us in our whole life.
Well, just coming, should we talk a little bit about the 30k goal?
We could do. I think there's 2 things on my mind. One is getting the best out of the next 2 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the second thing is making sure that if we've got any goals regarding the social enterprise stuff between now and the end of January, we need to keep moving along on those as well. I don't want to wake up at the end of January and find that actually. So we need to clarify whether or not any of that vision is clear enough to go forward, like with the back room or the concert with the things, or the Give a Little. All the ones that are on the table at the moment, we need to decide, are we going to put them aside and not even think about them until next January, or are we going to get a clear idea of how they might fit in and are they valid to move forward on? Because now's the last meeting we've got about that. So there's that, plus making the best of the next 2 months in terms of the shop. So
how should we approach talking about this? Do we want to do it piece by piece? Do we want to talk about the retail shop, the music, and then... Well, the retail shop doesn't involve any change of attitude. It's just got to be done. So that's an easy one. We can do that first. Well, I guess the question for me is, when you've brought up a sales goal of 30,000 over the next 3 weeks, like, wow, do we have enough stock? Yeah. I'm constantly doing figures at the moment, trying to work that out. And I'm looking at holes where we haven't got them. As I said this morning, that's what you saw us doing there, looking for a couple of big items. We need to sell a big item a day.
and I've got to keep replacing them every time they sell.
So what's a big item?
Furniture,
Drum
Drum kits, amps.
Banjos, furniture,
concrete stuff.
keyboard,
Buddhas,
yeah,
or-
big Buddhas outside. So at the moment we're selling one big musical instrument just about every second day, and I've just got to keep those coming. So I'm trying to set my budget up so that there's enough money to pay for each one as I buy them, because I don't want to run into debt with them.
So what's the value of a big instrument?
For us to pay, even to sell or to buy,
To buy.
$500 to $600.
Yeah.
And you're selling it for $2,000?
No, we sell them for about 800, 900. It's music.
Oh, so you're not actually
Well,
a couple $100 on it.
that's if I buy new. I haven't had to buy new so far. I've been buying second hand.
Yeah.
We've been really lucky, and we've been doubling our money. So that's been great. But now I've run out of second hand goods. I'm going to have to buy new. So, like for instance, if I buy a drum kit that sells at $7.99, that will cost me about $500, just under $500 with his 10% discount, plus the 5% discount on early sales. So it could cost me as little as $450.
I just wonder if there's, we control Trade Me, for example, trying to find bargains, which Chris does quite often anyway. But I'm just wondering if there's when I was out doing my second-hand trading learning with Mike, we did troll the cash converters, because often they underprice things.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if there's a possibility of actually having some money going out and trolling.
We have to have somebody knew what they're doing going out there. I'm not up to that.
Well, what about Steve or Brian?
Where would they go?
They'd have to go to Hamilton or Auckland,
Yeah,
which means
exactly.
they're out of the shop for the whole day.
$50 in petrol.
Yeah, with no
Well, no,
guarantee of
probably
finding anything.
$50 to $100 in
I think it would be
costs.
better trawling all the Facebook buy, sell, exchange, trade pages and putting ads through all them.
Oh, that's an idea, like the Pyro Thames.
Yeah,
And we have in our half-page ad that's coming on the 9th of February, we have made a point of asking for second-hand instruments, haven't we?
But it's almost like rather than I'm just wondering how we turn it around. Rather than waiting for them to come to us, it's like how do we be much more proactive?
Because
we advertise
well,
on
that's
social
one
media.
thing, because the way you wrote it, remember I got you to put a comma to buy, so we have actually put a big ad in the paper.
How's this for a cracker of idea? Why don't we organise and run? I'm not saying we do it now, but we could do it yearly as a second-hand instrument auction.
Mike loves the auction.
Mike loves doing auctions. It's a possibility, but
Yeah.
Could you imagine, like, if we had
Yeah, it
had
often do
500
not-
instruments, the amount of interest it would generate?
yeah, okay. Put it on the list of possibilities.
Yeah.
And move on. It's a good
Okay.
idea.
Okay,
Anyway,
so the
just to
shops.
answer your question, there is an issue on making sure we've got enough stock, the right stock, at the right time. At the moment, we've got quite a lot of stock out the back, which Heather and I are going to bring all out in the next 2 days with Amy's help, and try and get as much as possible into the shop. And I'm going to look for a couple more big items, because I can afford to buy an item at a time if I can keep selling it.
Well, it's like coming up into the last week, yeah? So you want to sell a big item every day in the last week to hit the 30k, which essentially means 500 times 6 or 7.
6, because it's Christmas.
So even
6.
some of
So you need $3,000 in the kitty you need, like the week before, you need $3,000 in the kitty to buy 6 or 7 big items that are going to be delivered before then.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a job, and I'm really hoping that the advert on the 9th might bring in a couple of items from the second hand.
Yeah.
And I'm putting money aside in case it does. I've got $400 set aside already in cash, just in case. I'm just going to keep working until I get $1,000 worth of cash sitting there in case we can buy second hand goods. Because cash is king. If they come in with second hand goods and we can offer them cash, we can get the prices right down.
Yeah.
So rather than selling on behalf, I'm really hoping I can buy. That's as far as I can go, except
And sometimes
if I
people
run
do,
short, I'll give you a
they
yell.
do want money before Christmas because they've got
Of
other
course they do. Yeah,
bills and things they want to spend it on. So
Yeah.
that could provoke
yeah.
some of that.
So in a way, I guess, us combined with Mike, we're probably the only cash converters in town at the moment, aren't we?
Yeah.
Probably.
So I'm just wondering if there's much more we could make of that.
Maybe, but not between now and Christmas.
Yeah. Just another idea to put down. Because that's a service lacking in town at the moment.
It is.
People have to go miles away.
I mean, Heather and I are going to have to be really clear about what's selling and how to restock as quickly as possible for the stuff that sells, because we do run out
Yeah.
of stuff. So our goal will be to manage the shop in the next 3 weeks. Who looks for resets? We just have to make sure that the stock that we have got is out there selling, and the stuff that's selling really well is right out there selling. You know.
Yep. And
And
replace.
so we're just going to have to do a lot of work on that level, I think. But that's up to me and Heather to take that responsibility and work out how to do it.
Okay. So what
So
were we
that's that.
talking about? The 2-month framework.
The blankets, further blankets.